Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be painting up Vashtorr Arkifane from the Wrath of the Soulforge King box set. Man, that's a mouthful. Sorry for being late with this. This would have been done much sooner, but there were some issues outside of my control, and a few that were within, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I assembled the model all the way up to the point where we get in the way of painting. Essentially, his head, his body's fully attached, his tail's attached, his hammer and stuff is attached, his left arm is also attached. His wing-like thingies are not attached. The, how do I put it? He has these little furnace things on his back that's on his right and left side. Those are not attached, but these top and bottom furnaces on his back are attached, and the base is separate. And yeah, and then I prime it with a car primer, because car primer can be used pretty much all throughout the year. This is a black, matte black, don't use gloss. Alright, with Gunmetal Gray, Pallid Witch Flesh, and White Scar White, we're going to do the pre-coating. Now this model has a lot of intrinsic detail scattered all over, mostly its skin, very detailed, reminds me a lot of the game Scorn, but... So basically with an airbrush, because that's faster, simpler, we're just going to apply Gunmetal Gray all over from the bottom, and then Pallid Witch Flesh from up above to create light and dark shadows. And then with a dry brush, we will dry brush all over the skin, parts of his armor, his wing thingies, yeah, you never know. And yeah, now looking back, the wings I didn't really need to do this with in the end. His wing things and metal pieces, his armor plates, also didn't really need this. Alright, now with some Demonite Hide and Lamian Medium, we're going to create a wash and cover all the skin with it. It's like 2 parts Demonite Hide to 3 or 4 drops of Lamian Medium. I mean, just keep mixing until you get it right, to the right consistency and stuff, because unless you have the exact tools and measuring things I do, I mean, my measurements are pointless for you. But yeah, and don't forget his wings also have 2 bits of flesh on them as well. Alright, with magenta and lamp black, we're going to create a oil wash with mineral spirits. And so basically, it's just purple, but with a little bit of the lamp black. Very little, because this is very strong, and it will darken it to a dark purple. And then with enough mineral spirits, we apply this all over the model. And I let it dry normally, not with a hair dryer this time, because I feel like it would kind of ruin it, just because it's all over the body, it's not on one plane. And so the stuff can easily flow and run elsewhere. And so once that's done and it's dried pretty much, it's pretty solid on there, I use a makeup sponge, wipe everything off, and then with a brush and pure mineral spirits, I sort of do like some sanding or overbrushing on like upper raised areas of his flesh to really clean out any wash that might still be there. Alright, enough with the oil stuff. So I'm going to take Black Templar contrast paint and Magos purple. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Magos purple and a little bit of Black Templar contrast paint, and then I'm going to apply it to his like shins and knees and his forearm, his right forearm and stuff, because it basically, based off the box, it's like his limbs towards the tip get much physically darker, and this is just a good way of shading them dark. 1 or 2 coats, if the colors are right, should darken it progressively. Now with Demonite Hide, Pallid Witch Flesh, and Lamian Medium, we're going to do some highlights on the skin. So I'm going to mix some Demonite Hide with Pallid Witch Flesh and give it a little bit of Lamian Medium to help it retain its, to make it translucent and retain some of its viscosity. And then I'm just going to paint straight lines, highlights on the muscles in the upper raised areas. Top of his shoulders, arms, face, pretty much just that. Maybe some on his sides. The only thing I will say is it wasn't bright enough. I should have added more Pallid Witch Flesh in, so this would be far brighter. I think that's probably one of the mistakes I did, was that this layer was not bright enough to highlight even further. Alright, now for the armor plates. With Hobgrot Hide, Seraph Sephium, Thondia Brown, and Dorn Yellow, we're going to paint the armor plate things. So basically we're going to paint them all with Hobgrot Hide. Then we're going to fill it in with Seraph Sepia to get something like on the edges, fill in, it creates depth and shadow. Then we're going to take Thondia Brown, and they're basically like these dents or lines in the armor plates. We're just going to paint it with this, just straight lines. So then this is the somewhat debatable part. So I kind of do a 1-to-1-ish mix of Hobgrot Hide and Dorn Yellow, and then apply it all over, but it's a little too strong. I then add a little bit more Hobgrot Hide into the mix, and then paint it through, and then I do a little bit more Dorn Yellow into there on a final highlight and just paint over. Now the thing is, I retained a lot of the brush strokes and stuff in there. These armor plates are relatively small, despite me zooming in on them. And so the brush strokes and stuff zoomed in may look like a bit, but when they're zoomed out in overall, they kind of add sort of a patina to the armor plates that's not too egregious because the paint is smooth enough. And I decided, you know what, okay, I'll keep it. And then I add another layer of Seraph Sepia to sort of tone down the brightness a bit. Alright, with Thondia Brown, Corn Red, I don't use Evil Sun Scarlet, Trollslayer Orange, Uriel Yellow, I paint these lava lines in his staff. So basically with Thondia Brown, I use that to paint the shaft of his hammer thingy. Then with Corn Red, I fill in all these little gaps here and there, the cracks on his weapon. Then I fill part of them in with, well, basically the center of each of them with Trollslayer Orange with some gaps for the Corn Red to show through. And then here and there I put little dots of Uriel Yellow around to be like focal points of light or to show like very high heat in some areas. Alright, so I want to take this time to look at parts of the model. So it's really hard to see from the actual model, but it's clearly visible on the box. Basically, he has like ports or holes in him where you can plug in things. And so I looked at the model and I find they're really non-existent. They're just these little, tiny little dot nubs scattered randomly throughout his body. So, it's really hard to notice, kind of easy to miss, but so essentially what I did was I took Magos Purple and a very fine tip brush, and I just did a tap on each spot that I believed there was a dot. Believed, I'm not fully sure. And then the stuff flowed out and created a circle, a strong concentrated circle of the purple. And now with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, I am going to, well, paint everything I've painted with this. By covering it with this, it's not necessarily just for the protection, but this gets rid of all extra shine because I use a lot of washes and stuff, so this helps tone things down. But I'm going to go back and forth between metals and regular stuff, so, yeah. Alright, so with Black Templar Contrast Paint, we're just going to paint these cords and stuff that he has in some places. Some on his left hand and some stuff like that, some wires here and there, and that's it. Alright, with Eshin Gray, Dawnstone, and, well, I didn't show it, but Corvus Black, that was actually the first step. So basically his horns. They all have a base coat of Corvus Black, and so basically what I do is I take Eshin Gray, a fine brush, and I just paint straight lines along the front part, because he has like these ridges and stuff, and I just paint straight line with this little, not thin, but not too thick, of Eshin Gray. Then I take Dawnstone, and I just apply little dots here and there on these raised little diamond-like things that pop out on his horns, just to add some highlight. Alright, with Vallejo Acrylic Exhaust Manifold and Liquitex ink, which is a very dark ink, and some gloss varnish. Basically, I just need a very dark black metal, but I don't have it, so I just add a very little bit of the black ink to make it darker, and then a little bit of the gloss varnish to retain its viscosity because the ink is very watery. And basically, I just paint everything, all his the dark metal, well, with this dark metal as the base color. Yeah, I need to get an actual proper black metal. I think I found one finally, but we'll see if it gets here. Alright, with Gunmetal Gray, which is a somewhat brighter metal, I then take this and then I take a little sponge thingy and attach it to some tweezers, and I just tap it all over the metal parts to create sort of a patina along the metal. And then with Dura Aluminum, which is a bright silver, I then use this to paint the edges of all the pieces of metal, a few scratches here and there, and as well as all the inside parts of the pistons. And then with Nuln Oil, I then applied this into like parts of the metal and stuff to add lots of shadow in them. There's like these holes and stuff where gears are. Alright, I completely missed the feet, so with Eshin Gray, Dawnstone, and Magos Purple, I'm going to paint his hooves. So basically, base layer of Eshin Gray. Then I do a mix of Eshin Gray and Dawnstone all over, or not all over, but like in straight lines, thick straight lines, because there's some grooves and stuff there. Then I go with pure Dawnstone, painting very thin lines along the most raised areas of these grooves. Then I take Magos Purple and just apply it in thin stripes in these recesses, just to try something different, maybe a different color stuff. Alright, with Vallejo Copper, this is a very, very strong color and it shines through a lot. So I'm going to apply this to basically everything that I have not painted, everything that's not the black metal, silver and stuff, or the fleshy parts, or non-metallics. And yeah, his claws, the wing claw thingies, stuff like that, yeah. Oh, and the edges of his armor plates. Alright, so I took some Warp Block Bronze as a darker metal and I mixed it in with the copper, and it created this silver color, and then I applied it to the back of his front chest armor plates and stuff just to make it darker there because less shadow. I don't know exactly what I was doing, but I just did this because I wanted to darken it, created this weird off copper color. Yeah. Alright, with my incredibly very sparse amount of Agrax Earthshade, I then paint all the copper. So I found actually that if I give 2 coats to the copper, it matches very closely to what the box is for certain parts. The edges of his armor plates, the brass filigree, his hammer, and his wings. I was only able to do part of them because then I ran out. And part of the reason why this took so long to come out is, well, I need to get more Agrax Earthshade, and the GW closest to me actually is closed for a few days of the week. At least I thought. They apparently changed their schedule now, but I didn't know that until pretty late. And then when I went into the store to get the stuff, they were completely out of Agrax Earthshade. It's like, what am I supposed to do? So, this is part of the reason it was delayed. So I rolled with the punches. Alright, with Nuln Oil, because I don't have any more agrax, I applied this as a second coat to all the wing parts. Now I was able to coat his main body and stuff, everything else, in 2 coats of agrax earthshade, but his wing parts I was only able to do 1 coat of agrax earthshade. So the Nuln Oil is just to finish it off, and it's close enough. Alright, and back to Vallejo Copper, and I use this to just do highlights. I make sure that, so this is a very runny paint, so I have to press it in, once it's applied to the brush, I then apply it, or press the brush into a paper towel to absorb a lot of the runniness, and then I just use it to do highlights on the most raised areas, edges, sort of overbrushing, edge highlighting and stuff. For the wings it's very easy because then I can easily apply an edge to it. This is just to build some highlights and colors there. Alright, with Iron Warriors. So the only reason I'm using this is because these paints, the Citadel ones, are kind of thick, so I use pure Iron Warrior and a fine tip brush, and then I apply it onto the dots, all the purple dots I made all that time ago. If I use the Vallejo stuff, it's too runny and it'll flow everywhere and mess everything up, but this paint is thick enough that I can just do little taps here and there and apply a dot of silver there to look like the ports. Alright, with Corn Red, Evil Sun Scarlet, Troll Slayer Orange, and I actually do not use Uriel Yellow. So what I did was, with Corn Red, I used this to fill in the areas of fire. So he has these furnaces, he has these other things, his mouth also has them as well. I use this to fill in the holes, gaps, and like rib-like things as the base color. Then I pretty much cover up most of it with Evil Sun Scarlet. Then with Troll Slayer Orange, I paint only a small portion of it for the furnace things, the furnace mouths, or any variation of it. The Troll Slayer Orange is towards the bottom half or third. And for the eyes, it's just a thin line in one part of the eyes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, with Troll Slayer Orange and Dorn Yellow, I am going to paint his eyes. Basically, I paint them Troll Slayer Orange, and then I put a dot in the center, because there's one there, and then I paint the ring around. It takes a couple tries with his right eye to get it right, but in the end I do. And here's a quick base I threw together. There's actually no putty on it, it's just snow and gravel, and of course his special base. Alright then, and then I proceed to assemble the entire model using super glue. And done. He's okay. 7 out of 10 for my work. I'm just not too happy with it. I don't know, there's just some odd things. So there's some things I did really well that went really good, some things that were just short of being great, and then there's just some stuff that just hold it back. So the first thing is that it's great, the armor. The yellowish armor plates, they look really good. The patina kind of effect, it's subtle, but it makes the armor plates sort of look a little like clay, if you get what I'm saying. His skin is incredibly detailed, and all that detail is completely visible. All the individual muscles and ligaments and stuff like that all scattered throughout is visible, clearly visible, and you can pick it out. His things that are okay, the base, it's better. It's an improvement for brown bases. It's okay. It's mostly his base that does most of the heavy lifting, but yeah. The fire effects from the furnace of his hammer, the exhaust things, his mouth and stuff, those are pretty good. The wings are probably one of the weaker parts. I mean, of course, I had the problem with Agrex Earthshade not being available. The fact that I put 2 coats of wash on a metal and the metal still shines through pretty well is a real huge testament to Vallejo's special paints. But apart from that, his skin is good. His armor is great. The metals are okay. The wings are so-so. I mean, the talons are fine and stuff like that. His face, I didn't notice this until afterwards, but it looks like he's wearing glasses. His eyes, they don't look like goggles. They look like nerdy glasses. I had to retouch up his eyes multiple times to make it look somewhat decent and not nerdy, like those thick round glasses you see on like 90s nerds that get beat up. So I was looking at him, it's like, oh my goodness, he looks terrible with this. Yeah. But apart from that, there's a lot of things that went well, but overall, as an overall package, I feel he's kind of dull. I don't think I didn't have the imagination to really figure out how to make him pop better. The only thing I know is that his skin is a little too dull and samey. Needed more highlights. Yeah, so I'd have to say 7 out of 10. I mean, it's not a bad model. But I just kept... I couldn't take him to the next level. He could easily maybe just barely pass for an 8, but I'd say like I just didn't I lacked the imagination to bring him up, and it's just like overall he just seems lackluster. That's it. He's just lackluster. So there's a lot of things that are good, but it's just not good enough. It doesn't wow me. It doesn't impress me. His armor is great. His skin got all that detail out, but I feel like he's lackluster. Okay, well. Alrighty then, so like the video if you like the video, share it if you want to share it, comment if you want to comment, and I'll see you again sometime. Whenever, who knows. Bye.